Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. I'm standing outside the Ukrainian embassy here in Delhi. If you look behind me, you can actually see messages of peace, of shanti, of bouquets of flowers which have actually been placed over here. And the message from this Ukrainian embassy is very, very clear, that there needs to be peace as soon as possible. There needs to be an effort to ensure that this situation is improving. But at this juncture, the situation appears to be worsening, not improving at all. And it represents a real crisis, not just for millions of Ukrainians in that country, but in fact millions of people across Europe, and certainly for Indian nationals looking to try and get out of Ukraine at this juncture. So what we'll do before we introduce our panel, and later on this program, we'll be joined by the Ukrainian ambassador to New Delhi as well. A quick look at some of the big headlines that we've been tracking. Well, the Russia-Ukraine peace talks are underway at this juncture. The big question, will they really result in anything? Russia and Ukraine have begun their talks in the Belarusian border. Now, Ukraine's demands are declare a ceasefire, withdraw soldiers. Russia's demand is that Ukraine adopt a neutral stand at this juncture. Now, in all of this, given the situation with Indian students, many of them stuck at this stage in Kiev and in other parts, many of them unable to get out of the border regions, border crossing areas, because it is problematic because of the enormous queues, because there are Ukrainian nationals looking to get out, many foreigners looking to get out as well. Given the scenario, the Prime Minister is chairing a third high-level meeting on Ukraine. It's the third high-level meeting in the last 24 hours that he's held. Ministers will be flying to Ukraine's borders to aid students as well. Indian ministers will be going there. They'll be flying to Ukraine's borders to aid students. India will be sending humanitarian assistance too. India will be sending medical supplies to Ukraine. The United Nations in all of this has voted to hold an emergency United Nations General Assembly meet. India will be abstaining from a vote to call for a United Nations General Assembly meet. India has welcomed talks with Moscow and Kiev. Russia, meanwhile, has closed its airspace to 36 nations. This is a tit-for-tat move. And that tit-for-tat move is on the basis of the fact that all of Russia's airlines have in fact been blocked from flying into Europe at this juncture. And the United Kingdom, the European Union, they've imposed sanctions on Russia as well. But what exactly is the state of Indian students, among others, looking to get into, getting out of the country and back home? We've got a couple of reactions. Listen in.
बॉर्डर को क्रॉस करना ही बहुत बड़ा टास्क है सर।
वो सिचुएशंस उनको याद करना, they're really horrible. We are just one of those luckiest ones जो यहाँ पे पहुँचे हैं।
कभी भी सायरन बज जाता था, हमें रात रात को भागना पड़ता था बंकर्स में, तो बहुत टफ हो गया था और हम सच में होपलेस हो गए थे। At the border there is a huge rush and people are like they have to fight to cross the border.
We walked for 25 kilometers. Well, they were allowing first that the Ukrainians cross the border, and after that the foreign students cross the border.
Well, joining us now, Oleksiy Goncharenko, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, Tatiana, Kukhareva, deputy head of Sputnik News, and Vishnu Prakash, former spokesperson of the External Affairs Ministry, is a former Indian ambassador who's been posted in Russia and the United States. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. Oleksiy Goncharenko, what is the status of the peace talks presently?
Peace talks are now on the way. They have not finished yet. We are waiting for the results, so I cannot provide you with more information. So they are lasting for quite many hours already.
What is the basic demand of Ukraine at this juncture? Is it a cessation of hostilities? Is that the first step towards anything meaningful?
The demand of Ukraine is clear: to get out from our land. All military forces of aggressors should leave our land. That's our demand. We are a peaceful nation and we want peace. We will never surrender, and we are ready to fight on our land.
Right. Tatiana Kukhareva, is that not a reasonable demand, that there are people dying, despite the fact that Russia says that it's targeting only infrastructure and military facilities? There is video, for example, from Kharkiv, where even the center of Kharkiv has been targeted. Therefore, if the Ukrainians at this juncture are saying that, look, please stop all firing at this juncture as a first step, is that not an acceptable way forward?
Well, look, it's not for me or you, or with all due respect, my Ukrainian, vis-a-vis, to decide. That's up for the Russian side in the negotiations. I'm a journalist just like you are. And speaking of those, the video, if I'm not mistaken, and what you're talking about, I've seen those videos. Yeah, that's not it. That's a forest. The center of Kharkiv, and we've seen the pictures of the Ukrainian side putting Grad missile launches into that center of Kharkiv, it's again the Russian side has maintained that the main goal is not to get any more civilian casualties. Again, we've seen moves that can't really be described as, Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to.
No, go ahead. Carry on with what you're saying. Cannot be. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Goncharenko. Go ahead. Yes.
Unfortunately, putting missile rocket launches into residential areas. That by definition is not the way to make it possible to have fewer civilian casualties. Again, we're talking about tactics that we've normally seen.
So you're accusing the Ukrainian side of having heavy weaponry in residential areas. Is that what you're saying?
We're not accusing anybody of anything. We have pictures of it. Pictures that people from Kharkiv.
Let me get Mr. Goncharenko to respond to that. Mr. Goncharenko, the assertion being made is that perhaps there are... Yeah, go ahead.
From Russian media. That's what is it, Sputnik?
She is from the Russian media, that's right. But she makes the point that there is weaponry deployed even by your side in residential areas. Is that correct? Yes or no?
No, it's definitely not correct. But I'm quite shocked with the way of speaking at all. That is our territory, our cities, and your artillery is firing at the cities. We are living people. What you're speaking about? What's staying? I'm here with the Kalashnikov because of you, just to fight with occupants Russians because you are killing our children and killing us. So maybe because I have Kalashnikov in my hands, you need to put a Grad here, or artillery should kill me because I want to defend myself. Well, I can't understand even the way of thinking. What these people are saying. We have our sovereign country. We have our sovereign territory. Shame on you. You should say that you are ashamed of what your government is doing. Oh, you are ones who is supporting it. So you are a real Nazi to do this. Genocide in the 21st century. Let's go and look at the eyes of children that you killed, of women that sitting in thousands in shelters and metro. And you are sitting and saying something, oh, maybe they put something somewhere. It's a shame. It's a complete shame and a bullshit.
All right, let's get Tatiana to respond to that. Tatiana, is this not a crying shame that an invasion has been taking place in this manner? Yes.
I am appalled at this, and this is something that you would expect from the Ukrainian side, waving Kalashnikov on air and accusing somebody. Again, we've seen the pictures, even the pictures that are shown by the Ukrainian side.
Their land has been invaded.
Again, well, is that the reason to wave a Kalashnikov on air? Seriously?
Yes, seriously, because
but he says he has to defend himself. He doesn't have a choice.
20 kilometers from Kiev, and I'm a member of the parliament, civilian person. I'm prepared to defend my city and my parliament, and I have no other choice. What your army is doing in 20 kilometers from Kiev, they just destroying towns to towns. You
That
you
is
are
not
taking
true.
people. You're shooting in kindergartens, at hospitals, at schools.
That is a
And
lie.
you say we have more than 350
All right,
civilians
all right,
killed.
Mr. Goncharenko. I'll get Tatiana to respond briefly before I go across to Ambassador Prakash.
Yes, hopefully. Look, thank you, Vishnu. This, again, you are seeing just what we're seeing from the Ukrainian side. This is a lot of propaganda, a lot of misinformation about Russia killing women and children. Why haven't you shown those women and those children? I'm sorry, as a
What?
professional in the media,
I can
do
show
not
you
believe-
children and now. I can
I
show
do
you
not-
children and
Okay,
now
but-
and women. 1 second. I will show them to you. You said
All right,
where
both of you
they?
hold on
I
for
will
one
show.
moment. Both of you hold on for 1 second. I want to just go across to Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, who joins us as well. Ambassador Prakash, it's getting increasingly difficult for Indian nationals to get out of Ukraine. Do you believe the evacuation should have been announced earlier, along the lines of what several other countries were advising their nationals?
Vishnu, there is never a right time, and you know that from experience. Government of India and the Embassy of India monitors things very closely. We have tremendous experience and to successfully get out our citizens. You don't want to press panic buttons. You don't want to wait till the last moment. So it's a judgment call. And I think that the judgment call was taken very well. In good time, the students were advised to leave. You remember till a week ago, the students who were coming back, they were saying everything is normal. Our parents were insisting, therefore we came back. And now that things have happened the way not too many people expected, Government of India has swung into action. You can see how we are getting our people, students and citizens out. It's a hands-on approach, and I think we are showing an exemplary leadership in getting our people out, and I'm very confident that we'll get each and everyone out.
But Ambassador, there are also those calls of distress, for example, from students in Kiev who are saying that they call the helpline numbers. Very often they don't get a reply, and there is no clear exit strategy at this stage. They are distressed, they are panicking, that's normal. Again, is this a situation where our system, the government of India, is overwhelmed because of the situation on the ground?
Well, not at all. I don't think that they are overwhelmed. Let us understand that these are not normal circumstances. What we are seeing is conflict, which nobody can control, certainly not India. So you have to be active, and you have to be proactive, and you have to be reactive. And that is what is being done. On real-time basis, advice is being given. 4 ministers have been deployed. India's equity is being put to use. Countries are responding. And, unfortunately, there would be some aberration here and there because it is not a normal situation. But our students know that government will do everything possible, and it is being done.
Ambassador, one final question to you. India has to balance its relationship with the Ukraine along with its relationship with Russia. But there's also a case to be made that India needs to very clearly and more directly criticize or condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because that's exactly what it is. It is a Russian invasion. It's what the world sees it to be. There are people dying. This is a sovereign country, and it is a democracy. Are we saying the right things strongly enough?
Well, we are absolutely clear, and speaking personally, I'm very clear that what has happened is invasion. Let's see what Government of India has said, that no solution can ever be found at the cost of human lives, that the global order has been built on respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. So it has been said so in so many words. I don't think that there is anything can justify an invasion. It is aggression, it is invasion. I think the Ukrainians have been putting up an amazing response. Hats off to them. But also the fact is that I hope that they realize that they are being played, because now the Ukrainian president is rightfully, I'm saying rightly, trying to defend his country from the front. He is asking for more arms, more weapons. Right. Whether that will be a blessing or a curse, I do not know, because death and destruction is happening in Ukraine.
In fact, Ambassador, that's the key point. The big worry is that the Russians might actually increase the volume of their fire into these populated areas and elsewhere, bring in much more heavy weaponry. But there are a couple of reactions which have come in, as always, on coup. We're just going to play those out, show those on the screen. Once again, as we pull out those reactions, again, we are in front of the Ukrainian embassy over there. In fact, we've seen the Ukrainian ambassador walk past. But these are bouquets of people who've actually said that they want peace on the ground and that they support what is taking place in terms of that fight for peace, and they support the people of Ukraine. Well, earlier on today, I did speak to the Ukrainian ambassador, who you just saw pass by just behind me. Here's what he said. With fighting having intensified in several parts of Ukraine, the thoughts of billions of people around the world are for the welfare of people in the Ukraine. Ukrainian citizens have been facing the bulk of the damage, not just to infrastructure in their areas, but to their lives as well. The threat is very real, and there are clear indicators that Russia appears to have stepped up some of the attacks. In all of this, there are also Indian nationals who are desperately trying to get out of the country. Well, joining us now, a very special guest, the Ukrainian ambassador to New Delhi. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us.
Thank you for coming.
I must ask you first, sir, your own family, your own friends back home. I know you are stressed, as you naturally would be, but are they okay? Are they okay for the moment?
For the moment they are okay. They are spending major part of time in bomb shelters, in the cellars. Just 2 examples. I'm trying every time to be correct with information. Trying to check and recheck. 2 days back, I received video and stressed call of my daughter that some missile hit house from our home 400 meters.
Which city is this?
Kyiv. And yesterday, early in the morning, my wife received distressed, absolutely call from Sumy, northern Ukraine, that the outskirts of this city, where her relatives live, several houses, including the house of her relatives, were destroyed. Thanks God they were in the cellar, somewhere in the bomb shelter, but people who lived in the neighboring building, 2 people were killed. It's absolutely fully residential area. Now there is a very long list of Ukrainian cities and towns where residential compounds were struck. Again, to check and to recheck the facts. Some people from my embassy live in the towns and cities which were struck by missiles. One of my diplomats lives in Chernihiv. Every time he's getting reports about heavy shelling and bombing of Chernihiv. Security guard of our embassy, Mr. Alexander, he lives in the western Ukraine. Even in western Ukraine, there was shelling of Vladimir Volynski. The list of towns and cities where residential compounds were shelled is very long. Very heavy destructions in Sumy, serious destructions in residential compounds in Kharkiv, very heavy damage in Akhtirka, Sumy region, Bucha, very heavy destructions on the outskirts of Kyiv.
And Ambassador, you were mentioning to me that Kharkiv is one of the areas where there's a large number of Indian students.
Both Kharkiv and Sumy, there is very high concentration of Indian students in Ukraine. By the way, these both cities within 50-70 kilometers from the Russian border.
And the point is this, that while India talks to Russia and obviously to Ukraine as well, the bombs don't discriminate. It attacks everybody.
Absolutely. Bombs don't discriminate. Yesterday was information that 10 Greek nationals were killed in shelling in Mariupol.
Right. And Ambassador, that said, your government is still, despite all the problems, trying to help the Indian students as they try and get out.
We are trying to do what is possible. I already shared with you the statement of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I can assure you that some people, maybe for political means, maybe just to become for 5 minutes the star of YouTube, they're spreading and disseminating this false information. Me and my deputy, we are on regular contact with our border security forces. We are trying, it's not my direct responsibility. I was requested by Mr. Shringla, I was requested by many parents what kind of assistance we can give. Of course, we are trying to use our personal contacts. We are just trying to call some commanders of the border force. Basically, we understand and we know situation. Situation is extremely complicated. The amount of refugees now is approaching, or maybe already approached, 5 lakh people.
Right.
And this figure is growing up. 5 lakh. Among Ukrainians, there's absolute majority women, children, and elderly people. There are representatives of many, many nationalities, including diplomats, who are trying to get out of Ukraine through western border. Sometimes there are some panicky cases, because you understand over concentration of people. People are in distress, fleeing from shelling, bombing. I understand the feeling of everyone. Everyone is trying to get out as soon as possible. Please understand that our border guards are also in distress. While they are on the border, their relatives live, many relatives of them live in some areas which are shelled, which are bombed. They are working 24 hours, even simplified procedure. But the inflow of refugees
is huge.
Is terribly huge. People of dozens of nationalities, including diplomats, including some people with family members of Ukrainian diplomats. I already mentioned during the press conference the case with my defense, with my military attaché, whose wife with 2 children, daughter is 1 year old, is waiting in the queue for 3 days, just trying to get inside Poland. The same situation is with many, many thousands of Ukrainians. Our ministry, our border guards, every time are calling for discipline. Everyone is equal in this case. Everyone is equal.
But Ambassador,
no preference to any nationality, either Ukrainian, either non-Ukrainian. Discipline, and the principle is very simple. How to put it? First come, first serve. Long queue.
Absolutely.
I interfered when there were some problems on the Romanian border. Now, you know that 3 planes from Romania has come. New groups of Indian students are entering the Polish territory. Still, near Shegini, which was discussed this concentration near Shegini, was raised by Modi ji during telephonic conversation. Still very big concentration.
I see.
People are entering Polish area, but many more are coming and coming. Our bodyguards are trying to monitor situation.
Right.
Where the concentration is less,
they're trying to move people.
They are advising people, please move to this direction.
Right. Well, Ambassador, I must ask you this, sir. There are peace talks today.
Yes.
Are you optimistic?
I have to be.
You have to be optimistic.
I have to be optimistic, but they just started. As far as I understand, they are moving with a lot of problems. You understand the positions of sides
Yes.
are absolutely different.
Yeah.
And we are worried that in spite of these talks,
Right.
still shelling
It's continuing while the talks are going on.
It's continuing.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that remains a big worry, absolutely. Look, sir, I won't take any more of your time. Thank you for, expressing the concerns of your country and your countrymen and countrywomen, and indeed speaking to all of the Indians looking to get out of the country right now, and hopefully there will be peace. There you have it, a look at the situation, the actual situation in Ukraine. It is extremely tense, it is extremely difficult, but if there is a little glimmer of hope, then perhaps the opportunity needs to be made to try and ensure that it is a lasting peace. That's the big question. Will there be a lasting peace in Ukraine?